Adam Roa. How does a poet become a millionaire?
You are who you've been looking for.
Me performing that poem on stage has been viewed over 250 million times and counting. It doesn't seem like the world has figured out how to treat the human heart as sacred. Loving deeply requires courage.
What do you think it is that can help other people find their own calling?
If someone's searching for purpose, the first thing that I tell them is stop thinking you should already know. The number of people who feel shame.
How do you know that you need to leave that person? How do you know that you need to move to a different city? How can you be sure?
There's an exercise that I do with clients, and you want me to take you through
Sure,
it right
take
now?
me through it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So close your eyes. When you start to understand and communicate with your body at that level, you can't lie to yourself anymore.
How do you learn to love yourself?
That's a really great question. When I talk about self-love, the first place to start is an understanding that self-love.
You've definitely had a relationship with depression. What's your thoughts on how to get out of that?
All depression is the result of suppression. So
how does a man make their woman feel safe?
I think the most important piece to all of it is
welcome to the Sacred Thomas Podcast.
Hold on real quick. I noticed that only 3% of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. Can you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps the channel tremendously. And the bigger that the channel gets, the better the podcast will get. I appreciate you and enjoy the video. All right, so we're live sitting down with Adam Roa. That's what pronounce your name right?
You did, bro.
Okay,
well
perfect.
Look at all that research in the very first sentence. It's like, wait, what about the name?
I know, right?
Adam Roa, R-O-A.
No, this question I've been waiting to ask though.
Okay.
And not to count pockets, but how does a poet become a millionaire?
How does a poet become a millionaire? I mean, one of my primary lessons that I learned the hard way, and is something that I teach now to like my incubator program, the Artistic Entrepreneur, is not to have all of your livelihood relying on one form of your art. And so as an example, most musicians are sitting there going, okay, the only ways I can make money are streams, which is actually new relatively, or touring. Right? Like that's the sales of my album, basically. That's the only way that musicians thought they could make money. But if you open it up and go, okay, what if I taught music lessons? What if I taught songwriting? What if I did intimate previews of new music? What if you just start opening up the aperture on what is possible for you for how to make money through something you still love and a craft that you developed. And it just unlocks so much. And so as a poet, I didn't make $1 million through my poetry. I was paid $1 million for my coaching. And my coaching is the space in which I'm taking what I put into my art and making it understandable and applicable to someone else's life. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what are some practical steps that someone who's an artist can follow?
Yeah.
That can make sure that they're not a starving artist?
Yeah, perfect. That's a really great question. So inside of the Artistic Entrepreneur program that I run, I have 5 steps, 5 modules, and I'm going to lay them out linearly, but understand it. You might go to step 3 and then back to step 1, and then it's a journey. But here are the 5 steps. Okay. First, identify your core conflict. And your core conflict is that sort of karmic wound thing that keeps showing up in every area of your life, which means it will be showing up in every area of your business and the process. Most common examples that a lot of people can relate to: the desire to reach a lot of people, but the fear of being seen. That's a huge conflict. 100%. I know you can relate to that, right? And then the desire to make a lot of money, but the feeling that money's the root of all evil, or it's bad, or it's shameful to have a lot of money or charge a lot of money. So these are core conflicts that we have inside of us. And once you identify the ones that are most deeply impacting your life, you now have the lens that you can use as you step into all the different steps. And so I'll go through the next steps, right? But that's the first part, so you can see it, what's holding you back. And so after you identify your core conflict, the second step is you need to develop your 100% certainty offer. And that means the offer that I know with 100% certainty, the right person taking that offer has incredible results. And most people are not there. They think, well, like maybe it's good, maybe I'm good, maybe it would work for this. But when you walk through the world with 100% certainty that you have something that could change someone's life or situation, you are more confident, you're more clear. The universe can send you more of those people. You spot them when they show up in your life, your content changes, et cetera, right? So you need that 100% certainty offer. Then the third step is, once you have that, you craft signature content. And signature content is not just content. Signature content is the thing that captures the essence of who you are and what you do. So a lot of the content that I imagine you saw of mine in terms of preparing for this is probably signature, where you got a sense of like, wow, okay, I get what he's about. And that's a different thing than just making content. And so you craft something like that so that that can do the work for you of getting people who have never met you before to feel like they know you. They that feeling that most of us have when we meet someone one-on-one, having content that could give that same feeling as close as it can is super important. Then you move into what I call dating your audience, which is, how do you create authentic relationship with your audience? How do you do that? And the different elements of getting people to really build rapport with you through content on social media and online. And then once you've done all of that, you have your fifth step, which is building your monetization ecosystem. And that's where you leverage people, systems, technology in order to make it scalable and keep you in your zone of genius, where you're doing the things that are actually the highest leverage. And so once these 5 steps are in place, you're going to have something pretty magical.
Bringing this back to the conversation we had off camera, I think all those steps, besides the last one, I think I'm pretty much right there.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because talking to you, talking to Preston, Alexi, talking to, I just had a guest named Sean Clayton. Man, it's so interesting how everyone's saying very similar things, just in different ways. I really believe that you guys are all on pretty similar missions, but there's only a certain amount of people that can connect with a certain messenger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's super interesting.
How old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay, 33. Yeah. So I'm 39, and 33 was the year that I was paid $1 million and became a millionaire at 33. And all of the things that I just told you, I didn't know at 33. And so me getting to where I am now has been a major trial and error, figure stuff out. And I think that where there's a similarity and an overlap for a lot of what people are saying is from a space of the thing that's authentically you is the thing that's ultimately going to bring you fulfillment. And we in society often confuse financial success as fulfillment, and it's not the same thing. And so I believe that we are a part of nature, right? And the queen bee is not trying to be the worker bee, and the soldier ant is not trying to be the worker ant. They all know their role, they play their role, and it all works. And yet, I believe that as humans, we're born into this, you can call it dharma or purpose or whatever you want to say, but we have that thing encoded in us when we come in. And if everyone on this planet, we snapped our fingers and right now everyone started living that thing, I think all of the problems we're seeing would work themselves out. There are people who love to clean. There are people who love to teach. There are people who love to cook. There are people who would love to drive people around. There are people who love to be on camera. There are people who would love to be actors. Like, it would work itself out. And yet as humans, we, whether it's societal conditioning, wounds from the way we were raised, et cetera, get so far off sometimes from that actual soul's calling. And that is leading to a society of depression, suicide. That is leading to people trying to compensate and find ways to feel purposeful and take advantage of other people. And so that's probably the common thread I would imagine amongst everyone is like, what is uniquely yours? And that's going to unlock the resources, the unlimited resources of the universe, because the universe is going to give you everything you need to live out that purpose. That's in alignment with the laws of nature.
Right. Well, I mean, I could definitely relate to that. From my personal experience, I just told you I used to run a party bus company, and that wasn't fulfilling. But I took that route because I figured, well, you can make a good living. You can make a lot of money doing that if I just start a big business and grow it. But fulfillment wasn't there. And luckily, I've always had parents that encouraged. They just encouraged us. They didn't necessarily say, "Hey, get a 9-to-5 and work for 40 years and retire and then live your life afterwards." They've always encouraged to do what you love now and then live life as you're growing. And that helped me. But what do you think it is that can help other people find their own calling? Because I feel like I was set up to almost stumble into mine, but there's other people that are probably influenced in the wrong direction. That's the opposite direction of where their passion actually is, because they think, like you said, money is, money is more important than passion and
yeah.
type of thing.
I mean, if someone's searching for purpose, right? The first thing that I tell them is stop thinking you should already know. That's the number of people who feel shame because they don't know their purpose. The number of people who feel lost because they don't know their purpose. And I believe you're supposed to go out and find it. That's the hero's journey. You go out and you follow the breadcrumbs that your soul is leaving for you. And on that journey, you're going to discover, oh, this is why I'm here. And that could change. You know what I mean? The moment that I have kids, I imagine my purpose shifts pretty dramatically, right? And so what I believe about this is that the universe will always leave you your next breadcrumb. And that part is 100% deep in my core. And I think a lot of people don't take the first step because they want to see steps 2 and 3 before they take the first one. But the universe is saying, I can't even show you steps 2 and 3 until you take the first one, because it wouldn't even make sense. You can see it, it's around the corner. And so whatever that next step is, anyone listening or watching this, you know what it is. Right now, in this moment, if you really just sit in some stillness and quiet, you know what that thing is that you need to do that you haven't done. Whether it's move to a new city that's just been on your mind, leave your relationship that's no longer serving you, quit your job, whatever it is, start playing music, start putting out content. The thing that has been on your soul, you know that it's there. And you just haven't been doing it because you're waiting to see steps 2 and 3, but the universe can't show you until you take that first one.
I feel you. How do you know that you need to leave that person? How do you know that you need to move to a different city? Like, you could feel like, I think I need to do that, but how can you be sure?
That's a great question. Now you're talking about the difference. What is intuition?
Yeah. How do you just lightning bolt moment? I'm doing it no matter what. How do you get to that point?
So there's an exercise that I do with clients, and you want me to take you through it?
Sure, take me through it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that you are in a white room, And this is a completely white room, completely neutral. And I just want you to breathe really deeply. And everyone listening or watching this, you can just do the same thing right now. Closing your eyes, feeling yourself in a neutral state. And now there's 2 doors in this room. And so you're going to walk over to one of the doors and you're going to enter into that room. Close the door behind you. And as you look around, you see dozens of puppies. Little puppies that are so excited to see you, that come running up to you with their little puppy sounds and smells and coming up to you wanting to be pet and love on you. And I want you to tell me what you feel in your body. Just feel that for a moment. What does that feel like for you?
Warmth.
Warmth. Perfect. That's even
Love.
enough. Warmth, love. And now, so I want you to exit that room through the door in which you came, close it behind you, come back into the white room. And deep breath, returning back to a neutral state. And now go to the other door and enter into that room. And as you enter into that room, what you see is the same thing, a lot of puppies, but they're being abused. You see people mistreating them. You see people kicking them, hurting them. They're starving. I want you to notice what's happening in your body in this scene. And what does that feel like?
Fear, anger, sadness.
Okay. And now you're going to leave that room, close the door behind you, come back into the neutral space. And just to end on a good note, go back into the room where the puppies are thriving. Have them come running up to you. Allow your body to feel that same sensation as before, the warmth and the love as you walk through that door and their favorite person has just returned. And then deep breath and opening your eyes. So I want to do a distinction here that's really important, which is that you said what you felt was fear, anger, sadness, right? So those are emotions. Those aren't what you're feeling. So what you're feeling in your body is maybe tightness in the chest. What you're feeling in the body is pressure in your head. What you're feeling in your body is temperature drop. What you're feeling in your body is contraction. That's what you're feeling. You assign meaning to those sensations. That means fear, anger, sadness. Similarly, when you walked into the room with the happy puppies, you said warmth. That's a feeling. You're feeling warmth. Now, you might associate that. Your next thing you said was love. You associate warmth to love. Got it. And so that's an important distinction for people, because if you want to know what to do, you got to start paying attention to those sensations, the actual feelings in your body. Because right now in this moment, when you go, should I stay in this relationship or not? There's a feeling. When you think, should I move to Austin, Texas? Should I quit my job? There's a feeling. And when you start to understand and communicate with your body at that level, you can't lie to yourself anymore.
I received that. And that distinction is so true. I love that. Actually, you brought up relationships.
Yeah.
So I actually want to get back to business, but I want to just segue into relationships because you're such an open book.
Yeah.
I was actually watching your video when you did it was conscious uncoupling.
Yeah.
What is conscious uncoupling?
Yeah, it's the videos on YouTube. It's called Conscious Uncoupling, Breaking Up in Love. So to end a relationship, in my case, it was 10 years together, to end a relationship, even though we still love each other, we're not actually fighting. There's no animosity. There's nothing perceived as necessarily wrong, but we just know that it's time. It's time to let this thing go. It's time to go in different directions. And I think a lot of society has this idea that it needs to get to this point where it's so ugly, awful, whatever, and that's the reason why you go. But sometimes a relationship just runs its course, whether it's 1 month or 10 years. And for couples to know that and be okay with that and end it with intention and with love, I think would do a lot for people to start to see that modeled.
I agree. What actually got you to that point in your relationship?
Like, why did we break up is the question. Well, there's so many layers to that, right? But the biggest lesson I took from why that ended was that we had been together for 10 years and we assumed we would be together forever. And so there was a taking for granted of the relationship, but not the little things about each other. We didn't stop appreciating those things. What we took for granted was that we could grow apart. And so since we'd already been talking about kids and family and just our whole life was going to be together, we were going through a lot of personal transformation at that time. Plant medicine ceremonies, all this growth. I was going on tour for my poetry, working on my first album, Permission, all of these things. And we didn't take the time to re-meet each other. We just went, okay, I've only seen you for 2 days in 2 months. And yet I've gone through massive shifts of who I am and what I want and what I see. But we're not taking the time to come back together and say, tell me how you've shifted. Tell me what you want. Tell me how I can show up for you. Tell me where you want to go. What do you see for life? And at a certain point, when we realized that much had taken us in different directions and that much had shifted, neither of us was willing to jump to the other person's timeline. It was just too far. And so for anyone listening to this, I don't care if you've been together a month or 10 years or 20 years, you're always growing. You're always expanding, especially if you're on this path. If you're listening to this podcast, you're into growth and you will keep growing. And it's important to set aside intentional time to still get to know who each other is becoming.
That makes sense. Now, I mean, obviously you guys grew apart. What did you learn specifically about ways that maybe you weren't meeting her emotional needs or ways that she wasn't meeting your emotional needs?
Well, one of the biggest things that I learned in hindsight around it was that I didn't know how to hold my own heart. I really didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to be lonely. All of these things that I had to learn after that ended, because I was in that relationship from 23 to 33. So all of these sort of becoming an adult aspects of myself happened inside of that container. So while I thought, oh, I'm super confident, I'm super comfortable, I'm super happy and healthy, that was me inside of this bubble of a relationship. And when that bubble was gone, suddenly I realized I don't know what to do on those days where I feel really sad. Because for 10 years, hey, I'm having a really bad day. Oh, baby, come here. Let me give you a hug. It's like, oh man, this project is so hard. Hey, you got it. You're such a badass. I love what you're doing. Do you need any help?
So that was a crutch.
It was a crutch without knowing it's a crutch, because that's the thing you want in a relationship, right? But there's a difference between having it because you want it, and it's one of the most beautiful aspects of a relationship, and needing it because you're not okay without it. Those are two very different things. But I didn't know I was not okay without it until it was gone.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the biggest piece. And the other thing that I think would be valuable for people is we had both fallen into roles. So as an example, in that dynamic, I was told constantly that I was the serious one. And so she would say things like, why do you have to take the fun out of everything? And I went, okay, that's my role. I'm the serious one. You have a film production background. I was the producer that needed to make sure that we were on time, that we were on budget, that we were all of these things. And so I played this serious role. And then once we broke up, I got into my next relationship and I was so much more fun and playful and joke. And I only in hindsight saw that serious part of my personality had become a role that I played. And when the role was no longer needed, a whole other side to my personality that's more me actually came online. And I think in relationships, especially long-term ones, we fall into these roles. We don't even realize they're roles. We think we take it on as an identity of who we are or how we be, and it's not actually true. And so now I'm committed to, in my own life and with clients that I work with, how do we identify what might be a role that's no longer serving, that you may have outgrown? And how do we burst that open and allow more of what wants to be to be?
Do you think that we fall into some of these roles because of feeling the need to gain your partner's approval rather than just happening naturally? Like, how do you?
Yeah, I think that almost everything that we do in some way, shape, or form, we started doing as a way to get love or a way to avoid losing love or being punished, right? You could say the same thing. And so the way that you show up in relationship right now, if we were to analyze the little things that you do, they are the methods that you think will get you love or keep it. And that role that I played was how I thought I would get love and how I thought I brought value. That's another big piece, because I'm saying the same thing there. But I'm curious for you, what's the way in which you feel like you bring the most value to a relationship? Are you in one right now?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you bring the most value to your partner?
And being able to listen, and being able to inspire with my patience. And in this relationship and in others, for some reason, I've been able to get into relationships, and every time, even like I've ended all of them pretty good. Like we're good. But I've always I've gone to, like, for example, my last relationship, she was a teacher, and I knew she kind of liked to do it, but I felt like she had more in her. We ended it, but she ended up starting her own business because I kept planting that seed. And with each relationship, I've always done that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the way I've added value. Even in this current one, I've planted that seed, and it's been starting to flourish. So
perfect. So I can relate a lot to what you're saying. Yeah. And that's a dynamic that happens a lot for coaches and teachers of wisdom and what we're learning. So now the question becomes, if you were not allowed to help take them to that next level of potential that you see in them, mm-hmm. if you weren't allowed to give them any hints or clues or plant those seeds, right? Would it feel like you're bringing less value?
I don't know.
So
I actually don't know. Maybe.
So for me, what I realized is, being in a similar spot, I derive so much value from helping people expand that it became the dynamic that I sought out in my romantic partnerships. And my whole life is built around that, right? I get rewarded for putting out good content that expands people. I get paid for my coaching that expands people, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was unconsciously the way that I thought I was valuable. And that comes from, by the way, childhood, where my father's from the Philippines and immigrated to this country and said, I came to this country with nothing and gave you everything. So you need to, cure cancer and become the president and do all these things, right?
Gotcha.
And so for me, achievement equaled love. And so what I would achieve and what achievement later became was when I could help others achieve, that was my own achievement, right? Coaching in many ways. Well, now that's becoming my romantic partnerships. But what does that mean? That means that I'm attracting partners who I have to be in the mentor role with. I'm attracting partners who are not as developed in their communication skills. So I could help them understand how to have more conscious communication, or I could help them blank. But that was a huge pattern. I can help you heal. I can help you this. I can help you that. And now I'm suddenly in this consistent pattern of calling in women who needed me to help them financially, with healing, whatever it was. And I couldn't understand why. Why can't I just, why do I have to play this role constantly? And I started to resent it. But I was calling it in because I needed it to feel worthy of their love. And so these roles that we play emerge oftentimes unconsciously. And the more that we can bring our awareness onto them, the more that we can start to design our entire life in a way that is aligned with what we actually want.
So you became aware that that's the role that you were playing and how it was fulfilling you. So now that you're aware of that, now what's the next step for you? Are you in a relationship right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next step for me is figuring out how to not be in that dynamic.
Okay. So it's still ongoing.
Yeah, it's still ongoing where, we're always growing. We're always shifting, right? And, but I had a friend say to me, and I'm always careful, these conversations can wind up triggering a lot of people. I've noticed like these conversations, because it's often, especially taken out of context in a 90-second reel, people will be like, oh, you have to be the teacher, right? Like I'm on a pedestal. I'm not on a pedestal at all. I have my own flaws and things that I bring in, that whatever. And I had a friend say to me, man, Adam, what I pray for you and what I would love to see is what would happen if you met a woman who was already on your level, already done the healing work, already done the communication work, already was able and willing to trust the masculine. What would happen if you met someone and started dating at that point? It would be a rocket ship.
100%.
Instead of this savior complex of you needing to teach something in order for them to get there, and then like feeling like that's what you need, or that's what you're attracted to. And so that was that was maybe a year ago that I received that feedback. And I have not been in a relationship since, as I'm exploring for myself all the different areas that dynamic still remains true for me. Not just in a romantic partnership, but like in my friendships or with my team, right? With my audience and social media. What does it look like internally for me? Where am I seeing that I feel as if I'm bringing value? Where do I feel as if I'm not? Where do I feel like the value I'm providing is the thing that's affecting my self-worth? And Yeah, so that's a real current exploration for me as I ultimately desire to be loved for who I am, not what I do. And that's a real nuance that I'm exploring, because oftentimes, like, wanting to help and like, I see this, like, you could start your own business. To me, that's who I be in a lot of ways. That's just who I am. I see that and I do that. And that's why I asked you that question, because even though I do that at times, it's actually not who I am. And where's the line then of letting the love not need that action, but come directly to who I am, for who I am? And I don't have a clear answer to that, but that's a current exploration that I'm in.
I love that. And I love how you're vulnerable enough to say that, because I do know, and you've probably been in this content creator space a lot longer than me, but I have learned that people will put you on a pedestal. And it's very important, I think, for you to be like, you know what, I'm still figuring it out. And I think it makes you more human. It makes people trust you more. And, I know there's others that are afraid to say that because they're supposed to be the expert and supposed to have all the answers. But none of us have all of the answers, you know? You might just be a step in front of someone and you can help them there. But
yeah. And at the same time, what is the things that I was saying 10 years ago, while they may be sort of true, there's levels to the game. And so there's nuance to all of this that I previously didn't know or wasn't aware of that will continue to unveil itself. And I think at a certain point you realize, wow, this doesn't stop. This upward spiral that we're on never stops. All the things you think you know, you get a deeper cut where you went, wow, I don't know how I couldn't have seen that before. And when that happens enough time, you realize it'll keep happening. So at 39 years old, I'm sitting here going, bro, ask me in 2 years and it'll be something different, but I'm still going to be a work in progress.
Right. That makes sense. Now, one of the things that I really love that Preston likes to say, he's like, fill your own cup, then pour from the overflow. How do you learn to love yourself?
That's a really great question. And the first place, when I talk about self-love, the first place to start is an understanding that self-love is the byproduct of your relationship with yourself. Most people think of self-love as something you have or you don't. Like you turn on a light switch or you turn it off. You either love yourself or you don't. And that's just not how it works. Self-love is the byproduct of your relationship with yourself. So if you have a better relationship with yourself, you will love yourself more. The same way that in your current partnership that you're in, or if I'm married for 15 years, if I put in time, let's use 5 love languages: quality time, gifts, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch. If I'm giving my partner all of those things intentionally, the relationship will get stronger. The love will get stronger. If I neglect all of those things, the love will weaken. And I think that when we understand that that's true for us with our relationship for ourselves, now we're on the actual path to answer your question. How do I love myself more? You bring more of those things to yourself that will strengthen your relationship. So what does that look like? That looks like physical touch. Great. It's not just this. It's when's the last time you took 30 minutes and said, all I'm going to do is move my body in a way that feels good? Not trying to accomplish anything like the right dance move or a workout, but just stretching, moving, dancing, whatever that might be. When's the last time I did that? What about quality time? A lot of people confuse quality time with being alone. Not the same thing. Most people, when they're alone, are on social media, they're watching something on TV. But if you and I were hanging out and I'm on my phone all the time, or we're not actually talking, we're just watching TV, is that actually quality time? For most people, if you're in a relationship and you're on your phone with your other person, it's hurting the relationship. And so why would that be any different when we're talking about the relationship with ourselves? When's the last time you just said, I'm gonna spend a day quality timing myself? That's no social media, no whatever. It's just me spending time with me. And then you start to listen. We did that exercise earlier. You start to develop this communication with your body, with your soul, and that is going to deepen your relationship. And when that happens, it's going to communicate more clearly what it needs. And then you can give it more of what it needs. And then you build an even stronger relationship. And along that journey, you will notice that you love yourself so much more because it will be the byproduct of doing those things.
So I know for you, probably quality time with yourself is probably your writing, right?
Yes, I spend a lot of time exploring my mind and listening to myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm new into that field. So this, I don't know how much you've researched me, but my thing is a lot of the stuff that I speak on my page is from things that I've written. The reason I started this is to be able to just get better at speaking on the fly. Again, I told you I'm a previously shy person, so I'm trying
hard
to learn.
To believe, but I love it.
I appreciate that. I've come a long way, and the reason I was super interested in talking to you is because you're a poet, because you've actually took time to learn how to articulate yourself. That is very, very interesting to me. So I've been on that journey, and it's interesting to see, how long have you been, like, when did you decide to actually start, when did you know you wanted to do poetry, actually?
So it's funny because if you go back and look through my childhood things from school that my mom has kept, and you just look through it all, I have tons of poems from age up until like age 8. Little simple poems, very simple ones a third grader would write, but I was writing tons of them. And then I just stopped because I went through a period of time where I felt I wasn't creative. I wasn't artistic. I wasn't creative. That was my brother and sister. And I was just smart. And so I needed to figure out how to earn love, achieve through my mind intellectually. And I was going to be a successful businessman. And I found my way back to art and creativity through acting out in Los Angeles. That was my first, that was my when I committed to following my heart over what made logical sense was when I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career. And then years later, I was at this event and there were a bunch of speakers. Each one got 5 minutes. And the very last speaker was a spoken word poet. And he went up there and performed this poem. I had never seen performance poetry before. I wasn't familiar with it. And the moment that he started, it was as if a lightning bolt hit me. And I said, I can do that. I don't know how, but I just know I can do that. And I went home and I wrote a poem. And then the next day I'm sitting around with some friends and I go, hey guys, can I share a poem with you? And now that would be cool. People would be like, I'd love to hear your new poem. But back then it's just me and a group of guys and they're very awkwardly like, sure, man. Yeah, let's turn off the game real quick so you can share a poem with us. And I share the poem and they go, oh, cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. And one of them, his name's Christopher Pitcher. He comes back in the room and he goes, Adam, your next poem should be called You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And he walks out. And You Are Who You've Been Looking For. I went home that night and I said, that's as good of a prompt as any. Sure. I was like, why not? And I start, You Are Who You've Been Looking For. And that poem has gone on to become the most viral live poetry performance in history. Me performing that poem on stage has been viewed over 250 million times and counting. It completely changed my life. It was the second piece I ever wrote with the intention of performing. And poetry has opened so many doors for me, has unlocked so much, and has been the greatest gift to my life. I could go on and on and on about all the ways in which poetry impacts me personally as part of my process, as part of how I uncover new aspects of myself, as part of how I influence and impact other people, as part of my deep understanding of creative energy and manifestation. Like, so much has come through poetry. But it happened because, again, I followed that breadcrumb. Part of that story is seeing that I had that hit and I went home and I wrote it. And then I shared it. And then someone said, hey, you should do this. And I went, sure, yes. I kept saying yes to those breadcrumbs. And if I hadn't, who knows what my life would look like at this point.
Right. So that happened. You know, you performed that. You performed that poem, and you said 250 million views.
Yeah.
I know there's another side to that, though. So that it was like a divine moment. All of this came into your life, and then you said, I saw you in an interview. You said you had an imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Can you dive into the other side of what happened?
Yeah, doing your research, bro. Look at you. Yeah, so it got 40 million views in the first 48 hours. So it went super viral, super fast. And the poem's called You Already Been Looking For. It's about self-love. And I got thousands of messages in those first few days. 9 out of 10 of them just saying, thank you. I love this. I sent it to my mom. I sent it to my sister, etc. And that was great. But then there was this 1 out of 10, this 10% of those messages, which wound up being, hundreds, that were people asking for help. People who were suicidal. People who were telling me they were being abused by their father, their husband, their whatever. People saying, I am thinking about killing myself. Help me. I don't love myself. And I didn't have a way to help them. This changed my perspective on business, just as a small tangent here. I used to think of a sales funnel, as being very manipulative. Like, I'm trying to trick people into buying something or convince them to buy something. But in that moment, what I learned was, if I had a funnel, I could give them the free ebook. I could give them the low cost course. I could give them the program or the thing that would be able to help them more. And I realized, like, a funnel is just the way that the people who need your help, you make it easy for them to find the thing they need. And so that changed business a lot for me at that time. And outside of that aspect, the people who were saying, I don't love myself, what do I do? Can you help me? I didn't actually have an answer. The thing that I told you about self-love being the byproduct of your relationship with yourself, I had to learn that afterwards. Because all these people were asking me how to love themselves more, and I didn't have an answer. But here I was getting millions of views every day about self-love and telling people to love themselves more. And I felt like the biggest fraud, huge imposter syndrome. And then I couldn't keep up with all the messages. So now I had people that weren't getting answered because I had no team. I didn't have a big social media following at the time. And I knew that there were people who might be committing suicide who reached out to me and I didn't even respond to. And it just dropped me into the darkest depression that I'd ever experienced. And getting out of that depression took me years. Yeah. And on the other side of that, I've been able now to share what I shared with you earlier about how do you love yourself more? Now I have an answer. Anyone who asks me, here you go. Here's the thing. And do you need something to help you with that? I got this and this and this. By the way, there's tons of free content. There's my podcast. There's my YouTube, all of that stuff to help you. Because I never want to be in that situation again. And I'm so grateful at the poetic irony of the most viral poem ever about self-love being the thing that showed me I didn't know how to love myself and then sending me on that journey.
Wow. You talked about depression. Someone out there watching, there's a lot of us out there depressed. I know you've definitely had a relationship with depression. Like, what's your thoughts on how to get out of that, or how do you even recognize it?
Man, all depression is the result of suppression. So depression is your body, your soul, your heart, your mind, all of it, your system telling you something is off. Something needs to be felt. And it has been pushed down and pushed down and pushed down for way too long, and it is bubbling over right now. And so for me, so much of my life, because of my upbringing and because of society, I remember when I was 7 years old and my dad told me, I got into my first fight ever. Right? I'm on the soccer field and it's practice. And at the end of practice, I get into a fight with my teammate and I'm 7. So this looks like throwing a water bottle at each other and then trying to jump kick each other. And it's that sort of thing. And all of a sudden I hear, Adam. And I look and it's my dad picking me up. And I grab my stuff and I walk over to the car and I don't even get into the passenger seat. I crawl into the back seat of the car and I'm crying. I'm laying down crying. And my dad's backing the car up and he stops and he turns around and he says to me, if you're going to fight, then fight, but don't cry like a little girl. And then he keeps driving. I didn't cry for 9 years after that. And I know because I then cried when my cousin passed away. That's how I know. 9 years without crying. And combine that with all of the media, the movies, the things, boys don't cry, men be a man, all of this stuff that we're starting to move away from, but there's still definitely that tone to what it is to be a man. And I just was completely detached from my emotions, shut them down, which is why I found my way to acting, because acting was the pressure release valve. It was the safe space for me to feel. Not only that, the more I felt, the better an actor I was. So I created a feedback loop for me to let my emotions out. And that's the power of art. Art is a safe space for our emotional expression, and it will save lives. It is incredibly important. And whatever is being pushed down needs to be felt. This is this saying that you hear over and over, the only way out is through. Yes, because you have to feel those things in order to move them out of your body. They're being stored in your body. Those tears that you didn't cry for decades of your life, they're in there and they need to be cried. They need to be felt. And if you don't, then it will eventually eat away at you and manifest itself as depression or as cancer or as some other way in which your body says, I can't hold it anymore. And so the short answer is feel all the things that you've been too scared to feel if you want to avoid staying depressed.
I love how you went into acting. I've always been terrified of acting. And this is coming from being in a background where my family is a bunch of actors and singers. And recently, it's just been pushed back into my life more and more.
Really? In what way?
I've had people, because, again, shy. To become a better speaker, I've been told that you should start doing improv. That's going to help you become a better speaker. I'm terrified of the stage. I have not stepped on the stage yet, but I feel like it's in my future. So I'm like, okay, I want to just figure out how to get better. All right, start a podcast, start doing things. And people keep telling me, do improv. My sister is now setting me up for different commercials, acting gigs all of a sudden. And there's just things pushing me in that direction.
Okay.
But do you know my background, like my family's background?
No, I don't.
Okay. Have you heard of Miami Vice?
Yeah.
My dad's Tubbs. He's a black guy.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
On the original Miami
Original,
Vice.
yeah.
Wow. Got it. Dope.
Yeah. But I've always shied away from that side, but a lot of my family they're amazing at that. I've just always been, nah, it's not me. And somehow I feel like I'm getting pushed more and more into that direction. So I think I need to actually look at it a little bit.
Yeah. And so then there's that part of you right now. So what we were doing earlier in this with that exercise, like if you were just to stop in stillness and get asked that question, it's like, are you meant to go and be on the stage or on more in acting? You already know the answer. It's in there, right? What is the answer?
I'm feeling warmth right now.
Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. You can tell everyone listening to this is like, that was obvious, but you have a resistance to it, right? But you're not here on earth to avoid the resistance. Resistance is necessary for growth. There's nothing on this planet that doesn't grow through resistance. That's the thing. Gravity is resistance that strengthens our muscles. We are constantly looking for ways to get stronger as human beings. We do that, right? But resistance is that way. And then when it comes in the form of emotional resistance, we avoid it. And I mean, as a society, we have built a society that tries so hard to make it as easy as possible to avoid those uncomfortable feelings. And yet, that's the growth. And so your soul is always going to leave you breadcrumbs in the direction of discomfort. It's outside your comfort zone, totally. But if you lean into that and you say, oh, this is that spot where my discomfort meets my excitement, that's how I know. That's how I know there's the magic in there.
Feels like discomfort meets fear. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. What's cool is what I love about this, and I'll let you know when it's happening, because I'm designing a 2-day event right now that uses performance as personal development.
Okay.
So it's not about becoming a better performer traditionally. It's about what comes up in the performing and that aspect of being on stage and on camera, and being able to identify and move through and expand and transform into the next version of who you're here to be through that as a modality. And so I'll let you know about it because I think you'll love it.
Can you give me a quick, just deeper dive into that? So how does performance help you personally develop? Yeah.
So just using you as an example.
Okay.
The idea, if I said, cool, tonight I have an event that I'm doing here in Austin. I'm on stage, I have the thing, but I want you to come and do the first 15 minutes. I want you to open up and you're going to tell your story and the whole thing. And there's going to be like 500 people. So yeah. So what just happened right now? People can't see you, but like what just happened?
Oh, they can see me on that camera. I'm gonna make sure they can. I opened up my eyes very wide.
Yeah.
And what happened, it brings me back to school, man. Whenever I had a class project, I've almost been in tears having to speak in front of a crowd. And
what is the thing that's going through your mind when you're in fear about doing it?
I don't want to mess up. I don't want to look stupid.
Perfect. I mean, what happens if you mess up and look stupid? What happens?
They're going to laugh at me.
Okay. And if they laugh at you, what happens?
Then, I'm going to feel terrible about it.
Okay. And then you feel terrible because they're laughing at you.
Yeah.
Right? And then what would happen?
Yeah, life does go on. I understand that.
No, I'm not even getting to the life goes on. Like, what would happen? Truly, what do you think would happen if you're being laughed at by everyone?
What would happen to me or just in general?
In life? Like, what's the idea that you have?
I definitely could just internalize that and feel stupid, feel like I'm less than,
Perfect.
Or maybe emote rather than feel.
Okay. So this isn't a coaching session, but like I'll give you an example of where this can go. Okay. And not saying this is you, but the idea of performing on stage is I could mess up. and be laughed at. The moment that I can be messed up and laughed at, I'm going to be outcast. The moment that I'm outcast, I'm going to feel really terrible about myself. When I feel terrible about myself, I'm going to lose all my motivation to do anything, really. And if I lose my motivation to do anything, then I'm going to blank, 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 blank. And you can keep going down that thread. That doesn't have to be logical. And that's where the logical mind kicked in when you were saying, oh no, I get it, life goes on. That's the logical part. But this isn't about logic. This is the little boy in you that's afraid that messing up on stage equals being depressed and killing yourself. Like that's literally what mine was. Mine was that if I lose my motivation, it was different. It wasn't through acting, but if I lose my motivation, I'm not going to have value, which I touched on earlier. And if I don't bring value to the world, blank, 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 and it eventually led to me being depressed again. And my fear was that if I got that depressed again, I wouldn't make it out this time. And so suddenly this thing over here, like performing at an event, the fear that's coming up is actually killing myself. And that interesting tether that's created. And so that's an example of what I mean about you didn't even have to perform. Just the idea of performing activated a fear in you that's tied to something deep and tied to your childhood, et cetera, et cetera. And so imagine now what comes up when you actually have to do it. And so performance, being on stage, being on camera, writing something that you then have to perform, all of that to me can be a very powerful modality. Because personal development, bro, at the end of the day, all that personal development is providing techniques, tools, experiences that allow you to see something you couldn't see before, and then ideally help you handle that.
100%.
Right?
Right. And, as you actually explain this, one of the things that, again, this is me facing my fear, but one of the things that I've done at my very first podcast, maybe 2 podcasts, what I used to do is try to edit out my stutters, edit out ways that make me look stupid. And very shortly after, probably episode 3, I'm like, I'm going to stop doing that because I want something to look back on and see where I'm going to be at episode 50, where I'm going to be at episode 100. So it's consciously figuring out, okay, I do not want to look stupid, but it's important to go through those growing pains and be able to actually be proud, like, oh, I used to talk like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I also think it's interesting because sometimes what we feel is looking stupid is actually looking human. And so the idea that I don't want to look stupid cuts us off from actually looking human, which is the thing that people connect to. And because they connect to it, they project themselves into it. Because they project themselves into it, they actually receive it at an emotional level. Because they receive it at an emotional level, they actually shift. Catalytic change in someone's life happens at an emotional level, not a cerebral level. We don't think ourselves into major catharsis. We can think our way to a place where then we feel something, but there's always an emotional component to the things that really change us and shift us. And in order for us to have that emotional component, we need to feel connection. And so I love what I gather from you is your dedication to excellence. You want to be great.
100%.
I can see that. Like you want to be great, the way that you study, the way the professionalism of how you do everything from what I've observed, and your mindset for breaking down the ways in which you can get better. You're destined. Like you just keep doing that, you will accomplish all the things you want and more. And the other aspect to that is the grace for the human that we are, Yeah,
man. I feel that. Now, I could always get better at doing that, but I've been able to at least see enough to keep trying to grow. Now, I don't want to mention which sister because I don't want to call her out. And I have 6 sisters, so you'll never know.
Okay.
But I have a sister who really has a hard time not showing up perfect, and I think it blocks her from her greatness. How do I help someone, and I've had a lot of other people in my life who have that issue where like, oh, I need to be perfect on social media so that, people will actually care about what I have to say or sing or do. How do I help them see that they can be human, and their humanness is what people will connect to?
You're the role model. You got to exemplify it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the part of you that understands that's still holding on to the need to be perfect as well. Like that part of you, that's the connection point. And then when she knows that you have that too, but sees you doing it anyway, now there's a bridge. Mm-hmm. And that bridge is important. That's what we're here to do. That's why I share the way that I do. I definitely don't share from a place of perfect. I don't share I share in ways that the people we know that are part of this circle go, bro, I can't believe you shared that the way that you did.
I just met you. I can't believe.
Yeah. And so that to me, the reason why I do that is because what people need is a bridge. If you think that I've always been this way, then the person who's sitting there deeply depressed and suicidal doesn't know that they can get here too. And this part of me that I used to smoke heroin, cocaine, depression, like all of the things that got me to this place, I want you to know about so that everyone listening or watching this knows that no matter where they are, what they're struggling with, it is possible for them. And so with your sister specifically, you show that it's possible. But if you don't show that you struggle with it, she doesn't know that you're actually doing the thing that she thinks is impossible.
The crazy thing is I do show her.
Perfect.
I do show her that I struggle with it. I still haven't been able to bridge it. So I'm just trying to...
What is the bridge for her?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get her to understand that she can be human on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there was proof. Because there was one time, like, she showed up very human on camera. And, that post sent. It got sent all over.
Wow. Yeah. So I think there's two pieces to anything that we want to achieve, right? We have to look at what's holding us back. Yeah. And then we have to look at who we need to become. Like, what's the thing that we need to do that we're not doing? Yeah. And so really the deep cuts of why she's so afraid of showing the human, that work would need to be done, because otherwise you're always fighting against it. And then what is the step to take? And for me, that step, by the way, because I really deeply relate, believe it or not, I really relate to what you're saying. Because when achievement equals love, to do a bad job means you're not worthy of love. And so that was me. I was a perfectionist. I was the person who absolutely could not handle second place, et cetera, et cetera. And as I did that work to uncover what I was running from and start to work on that, I also looked at, okay, what do I need to do? And I just said, I'm going to Eminem B. Rabbit this. I'm going to put myself out there in a way that I know is ugly and like I'm super embarrassed about and just like the worst, most raw, vulnerable parts of myself. And I did that in my reality show, The Art of Choosing Love, which you saw the breakup piece of and maybe some more of it. But I hired a camera crew after that breakup that followed me around the world for a year, making a reality show of what it looked like to heal after being in a relationship for 10 years. And all of the things that I mentioned earlier about not feeling safe in the world, realizing I didn't actually feel confident, realizing that I didn't know how to love myself, all of those things I put out on camera. I put out to the world. I showed myself crying. I showed myself confused. I showed myself in ways that now I look back and there's part of me that kind of cringes. I can't believe I showed that. Yeah. But I did it because that was me breaking through this invisible barrier. And I said, I've already shown you the most embarrassing, vulnerable, raw, emotional aspects of myself. I've shown you the part of me that does not feel like he's got it together. Now what?
Yeah.
Now what?
Someone's got to be the pioneer. So shout out to you. Now, speaking of, you said safety. It's a question I get asked a lot by a lot of women. Well, a lot of men too. How does a man make their woman feel safe? And is this something you're figuring out too, or?
No, well,
and I guess there's also not a blanket answer, right? But to your best of your ability, how do you make a woman feel safe?
So, I was laughing because I had a relationship that ended that I was unable to do that thing. I tried my absolute best and I could not create safety for her. And I sat with the question after that relationship ended of whether or not it was her inability to feel safe. It wouldn't have mattered what guy. She just had not done the healing work around her father wound and all of these things to actually trust the masculine. Or was I just not good enough, strong enough of something in some way? Did I not have enough skill or knowledge to create that safety? And so in hindsight, looking back, I think it was a combination of both. It might be a cop-out answer a little bit, but there was work that she's done since, and I know, and she was the one that said to me, I was not able to regulate my nervous. I was not able to do these things while in relationship with you. I had to go and learn all these things and read all these books and take all these workshops and work with these coaches and all these things. And now I can be in relationship differently. And so there's that aspect. And I think that's really important to own because there are so many men beating themselves up for being with women who don't trust them or don't feel safe in the relationship. And the men are thinking it's all them, that they're bad people or they're doing something wrong. And sometimes the feminine has to do the work. And then as a man, we also have to do the work. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like?
How do you know the difference between whether it's you and your lack of ability to make her feel safe or they're the person that needs to do the work?
I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I think it will reveal itself through the relationship not working. It's do you know what I mean? It's one of those two things. The relationship is not working, and what it most commonly looks like is just there's this undercurrent of fighting and testing and like just this two alphas almost in the space. And what the feminine really wants is to surrender into the masculine leadership. That's a really big piece. And so that dynamic is only possible if the feminine really trusts the masculine. And so now as a man, there are a lot of ways that I can create safety. One of the most important is recognizing that most women, their greatest fear, karmic wound, is that they are too much. That if they let all of themselves be known, all of their desires be felt, all of their emotion be seen, all of them be present, that they will be rejected for it. That they will be told, you're too much, too crazy, too whatever, because most women at some point have been told that. And so as a man, which by the way, men, our wound is that we're not enough. That no matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, it will never be enough. And so when we understand these wounds, we can show up for each other to be with each other in that space. And so as a man relating with a woman, knowing that her fear might be being too much, when she brings her storm, I have to be able to hold it. I have to be able to hold the type of presence that lets her know, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you. And the best example I have of what I had to learn how to do and what that actually practically looks like is in a with an ex-girlfriend of mine. We had been broken up for a while, like maybe 6 months or something. And we were in that space of, hey, should we try again? Should we get back together? A lot of people know what that's like. And we were having this conversation and she asked me if I'd slept with anyone else. And I shared with her, yes, I have. And she lost it. She got really upset. And that turned into, because with her fight or flight, it's fight. That's her personality. And so it became, oh, this shows me who you really are. And I've lost so much respect for you and all of these things, like trying to tear down at me, right? Mm-hmm. And what I said to her was, after a bunch of that, was, hey, I understand that you're hurt. I understand why you're upset. And I am willing to be here in that with you as you move through that and process that, as long as we are in the reality in which I am still deserving of respect, in which I didn't do anything out of integrity, in which I can stand behind my actions and that's okay. And your hurt is still valid too. But I will not hold space for you to be in the reality in which I am not deserving of respect and I'm out of integrity. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't break any covenant with you. There were no promises broken. And so I held space. I held that line and then held space for her to be upset for like 2 hours until eventually that moment where it was, and it had moved through and we could meet. And that's a very practical example of the ways I know of how to create safety. It's saying, hey, everything you're feeling is totally welcome, but still giving the masculine container of, but we're not going outside the lines here.
Right.
Right? And that containment in a healthy, loving way that they can feel, where inside of that room that energetically we've created, they can lose their shit. That creates safety. And it's the opposite of how most men try to create that safety, by controlling. And what that does is make their emotions unsafe for them to express. And if they think they can't express their emotions because you can't handle it, then it becomes very hard for them to truly trust you with their heart.
That's why I think conversations like these are just so important, and even learning how to communicate the way that you did. Because a lot of us out there, a lot of men out there will take that and not know how to say what you said. But when you break it down like that and you're that precise with your words, it makes a lot of sense. So kudos to you for doing that work. And, hopefully, someone hearing this can relate to that and take something from it.
Thanks, man. And also understand I learned that from being in a relationship in which I couldn't do that.
100%.
And that relationship ended. And so if I had known how to do that, maybe that relationship works. Maybe that creates the safety. But she also said that she needed to do all this work I don't know which is which, right? It's a little bit of both. And I don't think it actually matters. I think that what is important in relationship is that you and me are committed to being the best version of ourselves and showing up for each other in ways that are uniquely for your wounds. I'm not here saying, that's your problem. You go deal with it and come back when you're all ready and healed. That's not what it means to actually be in relationship. Me being in relationship with you means I know that you have work to do and I have work to do, and we're here to do it together. But I don't know if you've seen a lot of these posts online recently, but a lot of posts are about what I'm talking about now. I see a lot of them. Maybe it's because it's just my feed, but people talking about you're signing up for the wounds of your partner when you get into relationship as well. But one of the pieces that I think is missing from that is when you are fighting when you are fighting as a couple, it's important to be fighting for the relationship, not against each other.
Right.
And in order to fight for the relationship, you have to establish what that is. Do you understand what it is that you are fighting for? And I think that is a really key point to building a healthy relationship.
That's interesting. You're saying understanding what that is. And are you saying that's different for each relationship? Just
100%.
understanding what you decide that is?
100%.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now, speaking of relationships, you said that, I mean, you've kind of already touched on it, but you've said breakups can be transformational. In what ways are breakups transformational? Because there's someone out there who broke up with their partner and they want to like punch you in the face because that doesn't feel transformational.
Yeah. Breakups are incredibly unique in that they simultaneously collapse the meaning of your past, present, and future. And very few things do that, maybe only death, where the moment you go through a breakup, suddenly your entire past leading up to that point, you look through that lens of that relationship leading to a breakup. Every word that was said, I'll love you forever, I can't, blah, blah, blah. Now you go, this is a lie? Like, how did your entire past changes? Your present obviously changes, you're no longer in the relationship. And then your future, everything you saw for your future also changes. And let's say you get into a car accident, you really hurt yourself. Well, in that scenario, your present changes, your future changes. But you don't make it, oh man, all of my last 3 years leading up to this. It's not like that. But a breakup, your whole reality has just dissolved. And that is why they are so hard, but also why they provide the greatest opportunity for transformation, because you've just taken that Etch-a-Sketch and you've shaken it up, and you get to decide who you become in the breakup process. And if you go into that process with intention, you are going to be able to take the lessons, leave the baggage, and become the person that is more ready and able to call in the type of love that you want.
I just had a lightning bolt moment.
Tell me.
You are the male poet Taylor Swift.
By the way, I have a huge compliment because I love Taylor Swift's writing, man. She's so talented as a writer.
Yeah. No, but it's just like you've literally, because she's mastered breaking up and then turning it into music, and like there's millions of people around the world who love her. Probably one of the best and most beloved country, I guess not now country, but artists out there. And you've turned your breakups into so much wisdom, and it's.
Did you know I have a course called The Art of Breaking Up?
That was I'm right there.
Yeah,
I was just about to move on to that actually.
I created a course.
Yeah, tell us about the Art of Breaking Up.
I just went through 3 very hard breakups that hit me, and the breakups happened in very different ways. So I got like a full one of them, she broke up with me out of nowhere. The other one kind of she didn't technically cheat, but there was some lies and things like that. And just, and my 10-year relationship obviously ending. And so I had this varied perspective on these different types of breakups, but this awareness of, okay, how do I move through this? And each one I got better at. I actually moved through it in a way that I felt was less suffering. There's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. No one escapes without the pain. But suffering is a choice. And suffering comes when we are in resistance to the pain. And so the process of turning the pain into beauty and emerging on the other side of it as a more embodied, more joyful, more impactful, more powerful version of myself, being able to do that required me to become that person through a series of exercises, tips, tools. So I went back through my journals and I looked at what was I doing. I didn't even necessarily consciously know I was doing it at the time, but I looked for the patterns and realized, wow, I can do this intentionally. And then I put all of those things into this breakup course called The Art of Breaking Up.
I was going to ask you how long it took you to write the course, but I mean, obviously just that knowledge you accumulated over years and years and years. But as for someone who's actually trying to write his own course, when the idea came in your head to put that out there, how long did it take you?
Probably like 6 weeks of focused work.
Okay.
I think when creating anything for me, where I really start with people is what are the energetics? Because we live in an energetic world, right? This is all energy right here, right now. And that might seem like hippie woo-woo, but that's science at this point. You can just go and look all that stuff up.
Down to the atoms, I know.
Right, totally. And so what are the energetics at play? One of the things that I like to say is when you look at your iPad that you're looking at right now, or I'm on my iPhone, well, we're looking at a screen. We're looking at an iOS. That's imagery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Behind that is binary code. That's zeros and ones, just electrical impulses. And both of those are actually true. The imagery and the zeros and ones are both true. But most people only can interact with the imagery. That's true about this reality. Right now, we are interacting with the imagery, the iOS, so to speak, of life.
Okay.
But underneath this is an algorithm. Underneath this is zeros and ones, masculine, feminine, yin, yang, alpha, omega energy that is at play here. And one way to look at that is sacred geometry. This is this hippie symbols that you see on everyone in Bali or Tulum or something. But really what happens is inside of this, these circles that overlap, if you add straight lines connecting just the centers of these circles, you can form all of the plutonic solids. The plutonic solids are the building blocks of all that we see. The shapes that actually form the crystalline structure of everything, all of the chemicals. And so just with circles and lines, you form all of creation, which is the metaphor of masculine, feminine energy, and which is the same as binary code, which is just an opening and closing of electrical impulses, which is the same as an inhale and an exhale. And so you start to see these hermetic principles of as within, so without, as above, so below. And you realize that, okay, we're living in an algorithm. And if you learn how to read the algorithm, you are now able to code the algorithm. And so for me, the energetics of this reality are the thing that are most valuable to learn so that you can play at that level of the game. And so with breakups or any course, my starting point is helping people understand the energetics that are at play. Because from that point, when you really understand those and you can communicate to your audience what that is, now they really inherently get it. And it's not just the exercises.
How do you read the algorithm? How do you understand the energetics at play when it comes to breakups or really in general?
Well, that's a very complex and
where would you start to understand this? Because the last person I actually had on, his name's Sean Clayton. Do you know him?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's another friend of Preston's, and he's all about sacred geometry. And we touched on that at the very end. He had to leave. We're gonna go back into it, part 2. But where do you start?
Sacred geometry is a good place to start, but these are what I'm talking about with the energetics, sacred geometry, alpha, omega energy, hermetic principles. These are all mystery school teachings throughout time. You can go and look up Hermeticism. Just Google it. Look up the laws of Hermeticism. Look at the Kabbalion. Look at these texts. Look up the Emerald Tablets. Look up these things that they're not secrets anymore. They exist, but most people don't go into them. And so how do you learn about it? I mean, it's a deep study, right? But as an example of understanding some of the energetics of a breakup, most people look at a breakup as, okay, well, once we break up, I'm now single, right? You're either in a relationship or you're not. But there's actually, you have your breakup, then you're in a breakup process, and then you're single. A lot of people go through a breakup, like myself included, after my 10-year, and in that get stuck in the breakup process for possibly years. Some people, that relationship ends from whatever, and they never make it out, right? And what's happening in the breakup process? How do we actually get out of it? That's what people call moving on. How do you move on? And I think a lot of the ideas out there about what it is to move on after a breakup is that you stop thinking about them, or you just let them go somehow, you cut them out, whatever that is to actually move on. But energetically, what's actually happening is that you were attracted to each other at a certain point. Let's just say that's point A. You and her attracted at point A. You dated, it didn't work while you were both at point A, and it eventually ends. Perfect. Now, if you both stay at point A, you will both continue to still be attracted to each other, still wanting each other in some ways, hard to let each other go, etc. But you already know staying at point A doesn't work. It ended the first time. So in order to move on, what actually needs to happen is you need to get to point B. And what is point B? Point B is where you integrate the lessons, your soul's curriculum from that relationship. And as you do that, it will literally shift your frequency, your vibration. Again, hippie woo-woo words, but we could go into the science of it. But it will shift your vibration, and you'll be vibrating at point B. And suddenly, you're no longer attracted to point A. Anyone at point A, you're not attracted to those people anymore. When you think about your party bus days, the women that you may have been attracted to, you're probably not attracted to those women anymore.
Not even close.
Right. So point B, you naturally have quote unquote moved on. And if she stays at point A, great. You're just like, all right, deuces. But the chance of getting back together, she has to go to point B. And at point B, most of the time, you're not a match. Your point B and her point B are not a match. But sometimes it is. And that's the only way that you would be able to actually get back together and truly have a relationship again is meeting at point B together. And so the energetics of shifting your vibratory state to point B is necessary whether you want to get back together or you want to move on and never see them again. That's the necessary step. But if you stay at point A, you will always be in that breakup process and not actually able to move on.
Hence why same body, different. I mean, same problem, different body.
Exactly. You are going to keep attracting point A until you integrate the lessons and get to point B. So that's an energetic understanding of what a breakup process actually is. And when you understand, wow, that's what's going on, that's how I move on an energetic level, suddenly the things that you're doing take on meaning. Right? Why am I journaling about the thing? Why am I analyzing the red flags that were there that I previously couldn't see? All of these things that are in the course, but doing those just to do them is one thing. Doing them with the understanding that you are moving to point B is an entirely different intention.
I want to bring this back to your poetry.
Yeah.
You wrote something, I forget the name of it, but it was you were sitting in a bar and there was a woman and she told you that you were running from something.
Yeah.
And I love that one.
Oh, thanks, man.
And can you just speak more about that? Just dive deeper into that? Because I just think it was beautiful that you were able to take something that you felt almost offended at first and then actually look deep inside. Do you feel like you're running from something?
Well, I put it in the poem, right?
Yeah.
Which is... let me do the beginning of the poem so people can hear, because it's actually the story, right?
Yeah.
last night I went out to dinner by myself, sat at the bar next to an older woman who, well, had no problem telling me how she felt, how she really felt. She started to ask me questions about my life. She asked me what I did. I said I work remotely online. She asked me where I lived. Well, I travel full time. Well, are you married with kids? No, I haven't yet met my wife. Well, how long has it been like this? 6 years, a long time. Oh, now it makes sense, she said with a smile. What makes sense? It's just interesting, she said. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation where you're out somewhere and you get into a conversation with a stranger who seems to have had a revelation about you. Like God has given them some big clue about what you're supposed to do or why you are the way you are. Well, the part of me that believes in astrology, like the stars can tell me what I need, or the part that pulls out an oracle deck to give context on what to do next, that part of me knows that God works in mysterious ways. She's everywhere. So this old lady sitting there might just be an angel sent to me personally with a message from God. But I also had this thought. This lady got here before me. I still saw her have 2 glasses of wine and a martini, so she might be crazy, but it's worth a shot. So I said, lady, you can't say interesting and then just stop. If you figured out something about me, please tell me what you got. Well, she looked at me close like she was sizing me up, took a deep breath like she was going to say something tough and said, well, son, you say you want to settle down, but for 6 years now, you've been traveling around, so it's pretty obvious you're running from something. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I love that, man.
And so that's the beginning of this poem called Running, and it actually happened. I was going through a breakup, shocking at the time, and I had gotten this Airbnb in Colorado. I was snowboarding during the days and processing, basically, after I would get back. And one night, it was so intense and I was feeling so much emotion. I just couldn't be in the house. I knew I needed to get out. And so I went to a restaurant. I sat at the bar and this older woman and I got into a conversation, and she was in her 60s. And she told me, when she heard all that about my life, she told me I was running from something. And I have this practice that it's really important for me, which is when I feel triggered by something someone says about me or to me, I explore it as if it's true. So I went home and I wrote in my journal, okay, if I was running from something, what would I be running from? And I went down that exploration. And at a certain point, I realized, oh, this is a poem. And when I started writing the poem was when I came to the revelation for myself, which is I am running, but I'm not running from something. I'm running towards something. I'm running towards this feeling of my wife and my kids and my home. There's this, I don't know, I feel it in my body. I just do. What that feels like, and I'm running towards it. And that was a really powerful, and anyone who wants to hear the poem Running, it's on my podcast, The Creative Path. And that was a huge realization for me. And it was really powerful. And I'm grateful for that lady who told me I was running from something, for opening up and understanding that I don't believe I'm running from anything, but I do believe I'm running towards something.
What are you running towards?
Love. There's I don't know how to describe it, man. I have this feeling of home. And when I say home, it's not a person or a place. It's just this, it's all of it. This feeling of my family, my wife, our nest. I can feel it very viscerally in my body. And I know all of the books and the things that say, home is not outside you, it's inside of you, and all of these things. I get that. But I've had so many medicine journeys. I've had so many meditations. I've had dreams. I've had so many things about this feeling. And I talked to a friend of mine who's a channel, and she said to me that this was what she said to me, whether it's true or not, but it feels true for me, which is that feeling has been planted in me as a compass so that I don't settle for anything less, and I'll know when I found it. So I just keep moving towards it, man. I just keep moving. You know, I'm a nomad. I've been nomadic for 6.5 years, and it's a similar thing. I'll know. I'll be in that place and I'll go, wow, this is that feeling. And it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a place where it's like, this is that feeling. It has the texture of that feeling that I dream about, that I felt in ceremony, whatever that is that I've written my poetry about. Or I'll meet that person. I go, you feel like that. And I'm trusting, I'm having faith that the feeling that I'm holding in my heart, that I will find it.
I love that. So I got, how long do we have? It's an hour and 39. So you got, I know you said you didn't have a hard stop, but I want to.
We're good, yeah.
Okay. I do have some closing questions prepared for you.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. How do you hope your work will change the world in the next decade for both you and other people?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
Thank you.
In this next decade of life, I'm one of those people who thinks it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I really hope that my work helps people navigate that in a good way. I think the most important piece to all of it is giving ourselves permission to feel and actually doing that. Actually feeling so deeply that we're moving and processing that emotion and that energy that is, for most people, pushed aside and becoming depression, pushed aside and becoming addiction, pushed aside and becoming abuse and acting out. So many of the people on the planet right now that are activists, that social justice warriors, that even if I agree with what it is they stand for, they're coming at it from a deep, deep wound. They're coming at it from a place in which they are angry. They're coming at it from a place where they have not healed. And when we take action from that place, we are going to create more of that. Even if it looks like the right action to take, when what's underneath it is, I want you are wrong, you deserve to suffer, I am right, any of that kind of energy, we are going to create more separation. And so the starting point for all of it is we have to create safety for people to feel. And that starts in our own bodies. We've talked a lot about this on this podcast, is, do I feel safe in my own body to feel the things that come up? And then how do we develop the skill set to be able to have these types of conversations? How do we develop the skill set where with my family, with my romantic partner, I'm creating a safe space for people to feel? And if we can do that, to me, that's the foundation of what's going to lead to us resolving a lot of these problems. And I hope my work does that for people.
I love that answer. Now, whenever I was researching you, I listened to a lot of your podcasts, but I understand you were involved with Mind Valley. And I think that's how I recognize your face even before Preston introduced us. Were you ever on Impact Theory?
I wasn't on Impact Theory, no, but I've been on a lot of Mind Valley stages. I was just recently speaking at Mind Valley University earlier this year, and A-Fest and all of these things.
Okay. Man, I think I found out. How long has Mind Valley been around?
A long time. 2000, I don't know when they officially started. I mean, back like 2010 or
okay.
Yeah.
I think I was aware of it by 2016, and I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Or actually, no, it might have even been like 2014. I just thought like, wow, that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I had Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley, on my podcast. He's become a friend. Mind Valley, I think, does a really great job of making personal development accessible for people, and grabbing masters in their different fields and putting them into a place where you can learn. That's so cool, by the way. I don't know if it's talked about enough. We live in an era where you can learn from some of the best at basically anything. Literally at anything you want to get better at, you can learn from some of the best, let alone you add in AI and ChatGPT and just anyone who's out there right now. If you have a goal or a dream, it has never been easier to do it.
Dude, the way that I learned how to set this up, how to work that camera, was from free information online, YouTube University, baby.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. We've never been in such a great era where it's just if you have an interest, it's probably out there somewhere, and you can tap in to people that want to teach it.
And so you are someone who obviously has gotten to know tech. You edit, and you're in the world of tech and software and all of this stuff, 100%. Right? Would you get Neuralink implanted in your brain?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't say never, but I will not be the first one. One of the first ones.
Okay. So you are pro technology, but there's a limit to it, or you actually just want to make sure it works first and then you're totally down?
100%. I would want to make sure that it works first, work out the kinks, all that. You know, the Cybertruck came out, there was a lot of kinks. So,
I
want to get one with
okay.
that same exact idea. Not even same exact idea. Even it's my brain. I would not, if something were to go wrong.
Imagine, for example, they invented fake eyes that allow you to zoom out, record, whatever, do all these crazy things, see in the dark, like all of this, right? Mm-hmm. But it would require you giving over your real eyes, and they would put in these eyes that attach to your retinal capacity, and you can now see in the dark. You can now see miles away. Like, would you get the fake eyes?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So in Neuralink, the reason I would be open to that, it's inserting something into my brain. Now you're taking something that God gave me and then putting something else into it that was created. Now I guess we're all God's creation, so it's created in a sense, but I don't know. I'd be more weary about that one.
Got it.
About taking my original eyes out.
Okay, but if it was a surgery that would be like contact lenses, like implanted, you could never take them out, but you could put them into your regular eyes, you would do that?
If you can never take them out again, I'd be weary. So I wear glasses.
Okay.
I don't wear contacts.
Got it.
And I'm afraid of contacts because I don't want to poke my eye. It's more, I'm not really afraid. I just like glasses because you can easily take them off.
Bro, get LASIK. It was the best decision ever for me.
People have been telling me that.
Oh, dude, it's the easiest thing, and it was just a game changer. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You don't even realize how much your life is impacted until you get LASIK. The things you take for granted about wearing glasses or contacts. Yeah. Anyway, that was a fun thing. I'm curious because there's a lot of talk around sort of transhumanism and being human versus technology and all these things. So I'm just curious all the time when I meet people like yourself who are shaping the future, where you fall in those.
Where do you fall when it comes to Neuralink or implanting technology into your eyes?
I'm probably a no, but based off of, I don't even use Bluetooth.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm the dude with the wired headphones because I'm just going, nah, I don't. Like the Bluetooth waves going through my skull, I just don't think that's good. And I don't know, it might be very, very minimal, right? But we all have a line, right? I don't use Bluetooth headphones because of that. I don't get a Tesla because of all the electromagnetics of being in that feels like a giant Faraday's cage, and I'm just like microwaving myself.
Wow.
But I just recently got an Oura ring, and so that has low level Bluetooth that's going right. So there's a interesting line that we all have to draw somewhere, And so it's a fun conversation. So I just
it's
asked.
interesting. Yeah. So you're more actually like my dad. My dad is, he's just got back on the internet, actually. He just got social media. So he doesn't believe in a lot of technology, but I'm trying to convince him that there's a lot of good.
Right. There's a lot of good. It's a tool, just like any other, just the way we could use a hammer to hurt people or build a house for someone. Same with the internet, same with social media, all of these things. Yeah. What we're doing right now is only possible because of technology and social media, which I think is amazing. And I also know that if I scroll social media for 30 minutes, I feel worse.
100%.
Every single time. I feel it viscerally in my body. The puppies exercise, like it is worse. Every time I spend more than like 3 minutes on social media, I feel worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's escapism. Now I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
If there's one belief or mindset people need to break free from to live more fully, what would that be?
I think that the belief that most people need to break away from to live more fully is I think it's important for them to know that it's possible. So the idea that they can't is the belief that they have to release. And I wish that everybody on this planet knew that the dream that they have, the true one that's their calling, is possible. And I believe that if the universe has given you that dream, if God has given you that dream, it's because it's possible. And the fact that you can envision it means that your mind's already put together how it's possible. You just got to figure it out. You wouldn't even be able to envision that as a dream if your mind had not put together a way in which it could happen. And so everyone listening to this, your dream is possible. That would be what I would want people to know and let go of.
And I am in 100% agreement with that and how important that is. So before I ask my last question, where can people find you online? How can people support you online?
Well, AdamRoa.com is my website. It's outdated, but we will update it soon, I swear. And then Instagram's my primary platform, Adam.Roa, R-O-A. I also have my podcast, The Creative Path, and my YouTube. And yeah, my spoken word poetry is on my YouTube, but also on Spotify. Okay,
awesome. And I'm going to have all of the linked for people to just click right on from the video.
Easy.
All right, so last question. If you were to leave this earth tomorrow, what message would you want your art and your legacy to communicate with the world?
If I was leaving this world tomorrow, I would want my legacy to be that I loved deeply. It seems simple, but in this day and age where it doesn't seem like the world has figured out how to treat the human heart as sacred, loving deeply requires courage. Allowing yourself to put your heart out there means you're allowing the possibility that someone will mistreat you, step on it, drop it, neglect you, leave you, whatever it is. Putting yourself out there because you care. I mean, you're doing this podcast because you care. There's plenty of other things you could be doing. You can party bus, all these things, but there's a part of you that cares. And that comes with a level of vulnerability. And so for me, I hope that when I leave this earth, people will remember that I loved deeply and I had the courage to do that.
I think that's so important. Well, you've definitely inspired me to dive deeper into putting myself out there even more. And I hope you can do the same with the audience. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me, Adam. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for going on this journey with us.
Yeah. All right. We are out.
This is the Sacred Thomas